Welcome to Meet the Candidates. This Cable 10 series allows you, the voter, to hear directly from our candidates about the issues that are important to our community. This is all leading up to the primary election, which is actually happening now until June 23rd. That's right, things are a little different this year as we're social distancing. So we're doing our interviews from different locations. This year we took questions via social media and email, so we have a lot of interesting topics to cover, so let's jump right in. Today's guest is Harry Carver, and he is a candidate for City Commission. Hello, Harry.
Hey.
Appreciate you being here. So let's get started. Why don't you just start by telling us about yourself and why you have decided to run for City Commission?
I have been involved in various community activities here in Frankfurt for a number of years, and I guess it was 2 years ago I had been a part of the Frankfurt County Community Fund, which we had organized to raise money for a permanent endowment for Franklin County, which we did not have at that point. Well, as part of our affiliation with the Bluegrass Community Foundation, we realized that they were doing this program called On the Table. They had done it the previous year in Lexington. And several of us went down there and checked it out and, saw what they were doing and thought, we really need to do this in Frankfurt and Franklin County. So as a result of that, in 2018, we had over 1,000 people participating in On the Table, which brought people together in small groups to talk about the community, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what was going on. Well, one of the things that was clear that came out of those table discussions was that people, they really love their community. I mean, we have incredible assets here, and they talked a lot about that. But one of the things that was consistent through the table conversations was the fact that we had a lack of leadership that really allowed us to capitalize on our assets and, to help move this community forward. So having thought about that over time, I thought, you know what, you can't fuss about things, you can't talk about things if you're not willing to step up and do something yourself. So I thought, it's a good point in my life to do this. Kids are grown and I don't to worry about those kind of things. And so I decided that I would run for City Commission.
Okay, great. So with all of this previous experience, how do you feel like that has prepared you for, to get things done on the City Commission?
Well, having been involved with, nonprofits and been on several boards and all, I realized that to get anything done, you have to listen to people and you have to be able to work with other people. And, we're entering a very challenging time right now. We don't know how, this coronavirus is going to affect us on many different levels. Obviously, health first and foremost are concerns about health, but how does, what is it doing to our economy? What does that mean for city government? What does that mean for the revenues that we see, how they fall off? So for us to be able to tackle this, the issues that are arising around this current situation, we really need to be able to listen, to be able to talk things out and to have rational discussions so that we move forward together. I don't think that, this is a time where we can, be divided. We have to work, together. And I think over the years, having been on a number of different boards and, active with nonprofits, I realize that's important. It's important to be able to listen to what people have to say and to bring people together and to come up with the solution that is best for all those involved. So anyway, that's in a nutshell.
So do you think COVID-19, do you think that's the biggest issue facing the City Commission right now? Or is there something else also that?
Well, I think that in and of itself, I guess, I guess it has caused a number of issues that, not only, like I said, the health part of that and how we behave and how, we encourage people as we move forward, as, business start to reopen, that we're very careful about that so that, that we don't have, this second wave that shuts us down again, so that we can continue to, to move out of this, I guess, dark space that we've been. But it has set up, we don't know yet, and we haven't heard, how this has impacted, city revenues, how we're going to be able to, move forward, what next year's budget is going to look like, those sorts of things.
Right.
So
are there any, obviously it is going to impact the budget and the revenues. So is there anything, do you have specific ideas and how, if elected, how the City Commission can supplement or things they're going to have to do to buckle down to get through this economic crisis?
Well, I guess a lot of it depends on right now is how the current commission addresses the situation. Obviously, the fiscal year ends the end of June, so they're going to have a budget in place, by the end of the year, the end of the fiscal year. There's been a lot of discussion over the past few months about various projects and investing large sums of money in them. And there's projects that a lot of people are very excited about, and it's things that we've talked about for a long time that we would hope that would be able to happen. I'm not sure that at this point in the game, I think we have to look at them very differently. And I think that the current commission needs to look at things, instead of looking at things as perhaps legacy projects. I think their legacy probably should be, or I know their legacy should be, leaving the city on a strong financial foundation. We have to be we have to be careful. I mean, there's only so much money out there. People are stressed right now. And as much as we need some of these things to happen, I think we need to be very careful going forward how we make them happen. And we do it, and we make the decisions in the most financially responsible way possible.
Right. So we're in a time where we're talking about everybody, we're going to get through this together, and let's all work together to get through this. So considering that, do you think it's time to revisit the issue of a combined city-county government, kind of pooling our resources?
I think that, and it was one of the questions I guess the State Journal asked was about merged government, and and it was interesting to see how everybody responded to it. And I think it's one of those things. I'm a practical person. I've been involved in politics for years, and that sometimes time's just not right. And I think that that maybe there are things that we can do cooperatively with city and county government to sort of lay the groundwork for people talking about how we work better together. I think it would be premature to call for merger right now. I don't think the time is right. Like I said, I think that it would just poison it and it wouldn't happen. So I think that the city and the county need to do a better job of working together. I think that we need to be careful about raising divisive issues that don't really exist. I think some of the discussion about the Humane Society has been a little absurd when we were talking about county dogs versus city dogs. Those sorts of things. That doesn't get us anywhere. And realistically, all those city dogs are really county dogs because their owners pay county taxes too. So we have to think about things, in a broader terms. That we are all in this together. We all live in Franklin County. And we need to do what's best, for the community and what makes the most sense. Do we have duplication of services? Do we have services, that it could be better provided in other ways? There's all kinds of things and ways that we can look at this that just needs to be done in a thoughtful way that brings people together so that in the end we get what's best for the whole community.
Okay. Well, right now, Frankfurt is currently under a city manager form of government. So under that form, what do you see as the role of the city commission?
I think the city commission needs to be, they need to be leaders. It goes back to the whole leadership thing that, that we need to come up with those broad ideas, the goals, where we want Frankfurt to go. Where do we see ourselves next year and in 5 years and in 10 years, and how is it that we get there? By establishing those broad goals, then you look at your staff and you have and I think we're fortunate right now. We've got a good, competent city staff, and I think that we need to rely on their expertise. We hire people because they're the best that are out there for those particular jobs, and I don't know why we would do that and pay them if we didn't rely on their expertise. And that once the commission establishes these broad goals, look towards the staff to come up with options for getting us where we need to go, and then having a reasoned discussion about those options, choosing something and moving forward. I think that it's ridiculous, and I think we kind of embarrass ourselves sometimes when the commission gets down in the weeds and starts trying to micromanage things, and it's, no, let's keep our eye on the big picture and, move forward. I don't want people that are thinking about locating a business here, or coming here, or moving here. Sometimes I think, I cringe when I watch a city commission meeting, because I think those people, it's on the internet, they can be watching this, and I don't really, want. I don't think that's the image that we need to project. I think we need to work together. I think that and the city manager form of government should allow us to do that. It should also allow us the bridge between commissions. There's going to be a change next year. Even if all the incumbents do win that are running again, there's still going to be new people on the commission, and the staff is there to provide that bridge, to have long-term, the institutional knowledge that keeps things together, that keeps the services moving, and that's why I think the city manager form of government is appropriate for us and should continue.
Okay. So how do you think the city can improve communication with the people, whether it be, making a report about a pothole, or the city putting out vital public health information, or anything in between?
I think this is a much broader question than about how the city does it, because I've noticed that over the years that we can't seem to figure out whether it's as we were establishing the community fund, or whether we were doing work with downtown Frankfurt or whatever, that how people find out about things in this community, it's a mystery. There's fewer people reading the newspaper than used to read the newspaper. There's, people say, well, I get my information on social media, but if you're not following the right people, maybe you're not getting all of the information. You run into somebody and they'll tell you about something that's going on, and you're like, I missed it. How did I miss that? So I think it's something that we need to explore as a community beyond what what city government does. Is how do we communicate with each other? Where do we get our information? How do we make sure that people know? I know that Blair Hecker with the city has been working on this, trying to figure out, the different platforms and different ways that we can communicate to make sure that people do know what's going on. I know that, that you can go to the city website and sign up to get notifications of, meetings and things that are happening. But I think it is one of those, broader questions we all need to, start figuring out, is where do we get our information, and how do we do that, make sure that everybody does hear what's going on and know what's happening.
Yeah. Well, one exciting thing that's happening downtown is with parcels B and C. Mm-hmm. And that's giving us giving Frankfurt an opportunity for economic stimulus, that we need now more than ever, really. But the question is, with post-COVID-19, the developer might have some issues, more risk post-COVID-19 because of economic issues. What should city government do, if anything, to reduce the developer's risk in an effort to make that project successful?
I don't know I haven't been privy to any conversations recently about any changes, from the developer standpoint as a result of the coronavirus. I know that it's important that we move forward with the tax increment financing for the public improvement options for that area, so that it makes it feasible for the developer to move forward. Other than that, I don't know at this point. I haven't heard anything. I know that all over things are going to be, slower starting than they would have been otherwise. So hopefully that they'll be able to pick it up and start moving, as things settle out.
Okay. Well, another exciting thing happening downtown is the 2nd Street corridor. In 2016, Frankfurt received an $8 million federal grant, the Tiger Grant, to reconstruct the 2nd Street area. So are you familiar with those plans, and how do you feel about the improvements that are going to be made? And is there anything particularly that you like or that you would change?
No, I think there's been, a fair amount of public involvement in those plans. I'm excited about the opportunities for 2nd Street. I mean, it's always been kind of, it's a major thoroughfare for our community. It should be the commercial base for South Frankfurt. So, anything that we do to move forward to attract investment down there, I think is important. I think this was, the good news about getting the federal money, besides, the fact that it didn't all come out of our local tax base, is that we were able to do some of the infrastructure improvements that we have been avoiding for a long time. We've had obviously stormwater issues and other things that have been plaguing us, and this allows us to correct that for 2nd Street and to help make it a better, more pedestrian-friendly and bike-friendly area. I know that as somebody that runs and walks on 2nd Street all the time, just having four-way stops has been an amazing change in your ability to cross the street. So I think that as we move forward, the visual parts of it will be a big improvement, not only, besides the safety issues.
Sure. Well, as we've seen recently, buying local is crucial to keeping our local economy healthy. How would you work with the Chamber of Commerce to support local businesses?
I think that that we need to be able, and this goes back to the communication thing. How do we let people know, make sure that they do know what's available in our own community, where they can buy certain things, find certain things, what local businesses are providing them. I'm hoping that as people, as we move through this and the issues related to food and national issues around meat and other food chain situations, that that perhaps would be able to have more of a focus on local foods and how we develop our local agricultural economy and improve that. I know it's been difficult, and the farmers market's done a remarkable job trying to work their way through the issues around the COVID virus and serving the customers. And so I hope that as we start to move out of that hasn't adversely impacted their business. But I think that we need to think about how we can, better focus on local business. And we don't know what's going to happen with retail coming out of this. If people get too accustomed to shopping online, I mean, this has already been happening. People, it's easy for a couple of clicks and people, there they are on Amazon. Something shows up at their door. So how much beyond what has been happening already will this current situation, will it exacerbate that? Will that be even more difficult for our local retailers to come back?
Yeah. What changes in policy would you support to make Frankfurt more business friendly?
I think that, we've been talking about this for a long time, and I think that that I still haven't quite figured out why we haven't put people's heads together. Some basic issues around this. I mean, you say making Frankfurt more business friendly. Are we talking about, construction? Are we talking about, starting a business and what hoops and hurdles you have to jump through to do that? Or all those things, and I think that we haven't done a good job of segmenting those things out. We just keep talking about this general, Frankfurt's not business friendly. Well, let's clearly articulate what those things are and put people's heads together and figure out how we fix them, and is some of it just perception? Is some of it real? I know that there over the past several years, particularly as it relates to building issues, that there's been a lot of improvement in how the city operates and, trying to be more accommodating. I think that some of our processes are a little bit not only cumbersome, but they become adversarial. We need to figure out how, and I've said this about particularly looking at like the Architectural Review Board, is that how do you make the process more collaborative and less adversarial? We all want the same thing, and in the end, how do you make that happen? There's rules that are there for a reason. How do you help businesses work through those rules and make it easier for them to either locate here, or if they're already here, to expand and grow? But I think it's just a matter of, taking each one of those issues that people raise, that that when they say that we're not business friendly, and working through them and figuring out how we change our behavior so that that's not the case. And then in the end, once we do that, how do we promote ourselves so people don't, so we're still not stigmatized with old thoughts or old perceptions.
Well, you mentioned the Architectural Review Board. One of my questions is, if given the opportunity, how would you make improvements to the Architectural Review Board?
I think that they've, the staff and the board have, they've talked about how they do things differently, and how, I think, again, part of this, and it's very difficult, and I think, living in the historic district, or one of the city's historic districts, and having actually previously served on the Architectural Review Board, it's painful. It's very difficult, because, you want to protect the integrity of those districts. I want to, when I work on my house, I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, because, 100 years from now, I want somebody to be walking down my street and say the same thing that they are now. This is a great place. The city has, really done a good job of preserving its heritage, and so that people, and it's a living heritage. We all live in these houses. We're not creating museums or anything else. So how is it that we make it, again, talking about, regulations, how is it we make it easier for people to follow these rules and understand them better? And at the same time, part of our problem is that, when you look across the country in historic districts, they're generally, the property values are higher than surrounding areas. And why isn't exactly, why haven't we been able to accomplish that here? And I think part of the problem is that we've had issues with our consistency in code enforcement. When I always thought when, the time when I was on the ARB, if I was looking at somebody across the table and trying to explain to them why they couldn't replace their front door while the house next to them was falling down, it was a really awkward conversation. So I think that we're starting to address those differences and starting to, and I know that the staff has been working hard to figure out, how we deal with code enforcement so that there's not as much of a, that kind of inherent conflict within what the ARB is doing. But again, it still goes back to that process. If somebody who's probably, starting on a new project, is new to the historic district, and they should be able to feel comfortable going to City Hall, sitting down with them and trying to explain what they're, what they want to do with their property and how they get there, and have this collaborative process so that in the end, that they have done what they need to do and done what they wanted to do while, protecting the historical integrity of their property.
Okay.
So.
Well, in the last city commission election 2 years ago, most of the candidates commented on the stagnant population growth in Franklin County, and that Frankfurt needs a positive change to spur growth. Do you feel like the current city commission has made positive impact to move Frankfurt in the right direction? And is there anything you would have done differently?
I think one of the things that we have got to address is this: we have to do a better job of talking about ourselves. And I think that one of the things, and when you asked about, the role of the commission, one of the things that the commission needs to do is all of our elected officials need to be cheerleaders for the community. I mean, we need to be talking it up, about Frankfurt's a great place to live, Frankfurt's a great place to do business, why aren't you here? And we don't do a good job of that. I think we have sometimes, I think we have self-esteem issues. I'm not really sure why, because, like I've just talked about before, we have incredible assets. I mean, there's so many things about Frankfurt that make it special and unique and a great place to live, and we don't seem to be able to talk about that. I was laughing when I moved here years ago, when I got it, well, actually before I'd moved, when I got a job, and people asked me, they said, are you going to live in Lexington or Louisville? And I said, well, I'm going to work in Frankfurt. Why wouldn't I live there? And so I'm glad I decided to, and I think I made the right decision that Frankfurt is a great place to live. And I think that we need to do a better job, and our elected officials need to do a better job of selling it. And I think that some of the controversies that we've had over the past few years and the way that they played out publicly have been somewhat unnecessary. I think, as I said before, we need to figure out how we work together. It's not saying that we don't stand up for what we believe or we have particular opinions, but how we work through them is important. And it's very important on how people look at us about how we work through them. So I think that's part of it, is, just how we talk about ourselves.
Okay. Well, we're starting to run a little short on time, so I have a few questions that are short answer. So, do you support allowing chickens within the city limits?
I think that yes, I will say yes. I mean, I'm not sure why it's a big issue. I mean, if Louisville and Lexington can figure out how to do it, surely to goodness we can figure out how to do it. And,
Okay.
in a way that doesn't adversely impact your neighbor if you choose to have chickens. And there's ways to do that. And I think we can figure that out.
Okay. Would you support regulations on food trucks?
I thought we had regulations on food trucks.
Okay. Where do you stand on the bicycle ban at Leslie Morse Park?
I think it's another one of those weird issues that some people are using to divide us. I think putting an easement over the entire 100 and some acres of the park is a little bit absurd. I think we need to, we need to protect the whole park in general to keep it from being developed. I think we need to protect the historical parts of it from being, undermined. But I'm not sure that it's necessary to that protecting the historical integrity of the fort is not, does not prevent us from having recreational trails in the park.
Okay. Last question is, some of the candidates have not been responding to the questions posed by the State Journal. If that includes you, why have you not taken the opportunity to share your views with a wider audience?
I have answered the question every week, and I think it's important. I think, as a candidate, I mean, one of the things when I, had thought about running and decided to run is that I realized, this is a local race. This is, we're a relatively small town, and I was kind of looking forward to knocking on doors and talking to people, and haven't been able to do that. So how is it as a candidate do you communicate with people now? And obviously, trying social media and various other things, but one of the things is the paper's given us an opportunity to talk, and I don't know why you wouldn't take advantage of that. And I have, and I hope I've been straightforward and taken the time to answer the questions.
Great. Well, now it is your turn to look into your camera and speak directly to the voters and tell them why you are the best candidate for City Commission and ask for their vote.
All right, well, thank you. We appreciate, again, this opportunity, just like the questions in the newspaper, every opportunity that we have as candidates to get before the public and talk about ourselves and talk about how we feel about the issues is important. Like I said, I'm running for the commission because I think there has been a lack of leadership, and I think that I feel pretty strongly that I can provide that leadership. I've been able to work well with others, and that's an important thing as we move forward. As I said, where there's going to be many challenges that we have as a result of this coronavirus, on top of the challenges that already existed. And for us to be successful and move forward, that we have to be able to work together. The commission has to be able to work together to come up with the most logical solutions that get us where we need to go. And that's why I'm running, and that's why I would ask for your support, and hope that as I start to get out and actually have real interaction with people, that people would share their concerns, and so that, again, that we can work together and move forward.
So how can people learn more about you and your platform?
I have, reluctantly come onto the social media scene with Facebook. I have avoided it all these years, and I laugh because my wife has been on it, and she does animal rescue, so it's just been a great platform for her to find homes for animals. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to run for a commission, I really need to do, so I have a Facebook page. The candidate pane has a Facebook page. We have a website, carvercommissioner.com. So, and I'm not hard to find, so just holler at me, and if you have any particular concerns, either approach me through Facebook online, or you can call me.
Okay. Now, you said the website is carverforcommissioner.com?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The audio cut just a little bit, so I want to make sure we get that out. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I know that our viewers appreciate hearing from you. I know I do. It's been very enlightening. And so again, thank you for your time. To our viewers, I want to remind you that voting is a little different this year. It's a lot different this year, actually. So be sure to go online to govoteky.com to request your ballot and get up to date on this year's voting procedures, because they're different. And Cable 10 will have a lot of information out about that. So just be on the lookout. It's election season, so that means it's time to get informed and then use that ballot and voice your choice. That's it for this edition of Meet the Candidates. We'll see you next time.